YouTube? What is going on? It is the Dual Threat Podcast here, your daily news source for all things sports. My name is Drew, and this is my co-host.
My name is Jacob. Everybody, how is it going?
Let's get straight into it. We're doing over/under reactions here, so let's go.
All right, so over under reaction, what that means doesn't necessarily mean over or underrated. It just is depending on how the media is talking about a team. So if they're talking too much about something that really isn't that big of a deal, overreaction. Or if a team's kind of going under the radar, underreaction.
All right, so let's get into it here. We're just going to do one of each this week, try out a little something new, go a little quicker. So I'm going to start with my overreaction here. And I've been seeing a lot of disappointment in throughout Texas fans, and I understand. I mean, you lost a game that you were favored in, that you probably should have won, and this is just another case of Sark not being able to adjust in the second half. I get it. But I've also seen so many people, and this is just blowing my mind, say that Quinn Ewers shouldn't have finished that game, and that Hudson Card should have came in the second half because Quinn Ewers couldn't hit a throw, especially to Xavier Worthy, arguably their best wide receiver. My issue with that is this is not a true freshman, but this season is the first time Quinn has played since junior year of high school. He opted out of, technically he opted out of his senior year, so that is the case. He took 2 snaps last year, handed both of them off, and so this is his true first away game. Not only that, there were 25 to 30 mile per hour winds in this game, and you could see that really did affect his throwing. I mean, he overthrew Worthy every single time when the wind was behind him. And I think, that's something that you're not going to see going forward. I think there are things that Quinn needs to improve on, obviously, but he is one of the better, redshirt freshmen in the country. And I think that just the overreaction from both the media and the fan base need to just calm down a little bit. I think Quinn Ewers will be fine in the next couple of years. I honestly think that, unless Arch is wanting to redshirt, I don't even think Arch is going to end up at Texas, because I feel like Quinn is going to play when Arch is there, and I don't think Arch is the type of person that would want to redshirt his freshman year. That's just me. I don't know. So that's my thinking. I think Quinn will be fine. I think Texas will be fine. Obviously, they need to work on their second half adjustments. And, I mean, I feel like that's really on the media spotlight now, and I think that'll be like a main focus for Texas going forward, because it's really obvious now up to this point that that's their weakness, that they have been in the lead in every game the past 2 years. It's pretty crazy. So that's my first over. Jacob, why don't you give us yours, and we'll go from there.
All right. I think a team that the media and everybody's so quick to talk about UCLA and be like, oh, we knew they were fraud the whole time. I mean, they got dominated by Oregon. Listen, Oregon is a good team, and they played really well. UCLA also got extremely unlucky in this game. It's 10-10, tight game. Oregon scores. And then Oregon kicks this onside kick out of nowhere and gets the ball. And then they go up by 14, just in the snap of a finger. And the game feels out of reach right there. I mean, listen, UCLA's defense could not stop a nosebleed in that game, but they also just really got unlucky in terms of just the way the game went. I mean, yes, there are a couple drives where you got to be getting touchdowns instead of field goals, but they lose by 15. And it really came down to that onside kick. And then every drive after that, both teams were scoring. And so it was a boat race the whole time. And the first half, Oregon had 5 possessions and UCLA had 3 possessions. And it's just especially when there's a game like that just has no defense on either side of the ball, those possessions are really important. And they just, it was a great play by Oregon to get that onside kick, and that's pretty much how they won the game, because UCLA was in catch-up mode the entire time. But I still think it's a really good team, and if they go and win out and play a bunch of good games down the schedule, I still think that they could win the Pac-12. It's just their defense is pretty atrocious. But this game in particular, I don't think it was anything other than Oregon scored every time they got the ball, and UCLA almost scored every time they got the ball as well. They just kicked a couple field goals, and Oregon got that extra possession because of the onside kick. So I really don't think this game is as big of a deal for UCLA and their future and who they are as a team as people are making it seem.
Yeah, so I'm going to go to my under this week, and it's actually the exact same under that I had last week, if anybody tuned into that one. LSU. They dominated after being down 17-3. They outscored Ole Miss 42-3. This is an Ole Miss team that was not tested at all up to this point. They were top 10. They had beat everybody that they did. Arguably should have lost against Kentucky, but they still beat them. Ole Miss was undefeated up to this point. LSU is just a completely different team from the first week when we saw them play against Florida State. And I think arguably, it was kind of looking like Florida State was going to be the way that LSU was playing this year, and that, a couple of early wins were going to be the outliers. But it's starting to look like Florida State and the Tennessee game are really the outliers. I mean, outscoring someone 42-3 when you're down 17-3 really early, especially against a top 10 team, is so important. And, it really shows that this team, they came out with a loss with their brand new head coach. You got brand new coordinators, brand new quarterback. It's just a whole new scenario. You had to give it time to sort of, get them together and trust each other and that sort of thing. And now it really looks like, LSU is, believe it or not, at the top of the SEC West right now. They have a bye, and then they play Alabama at home at night in Death Valley. I don't think there's a better chance for LSU to win the SEC than, at least the SEC West than what they have this year since 2019. Obviously, that's not that long ago, but LSU is not super talented this year with, filled with first round picks like they were in 2019. And so that's why I think this may be even more of an impressive year that they can win by winning the SEC in the way that they do, with a first, brand new head coach, brand new quarterbacks, everything. It's crazy, and it shows the transfer portal and, the transfer portal era being such a huge difference maker for these big programs like LSU. And so I think that's really underrated this year. And, LSU, that bye, and then they have Alabama. Look for that. That's going to be a great game. And I may be picking LSU in that game. I don't know. We'll see. Jacob, what about you?
All right, my underreaction. This is a little backwards, I feel like, for those who watched last week. I think it was last week. Last week I was talking about how I thought people were overreacting to TCU beating Oklahoma State. And while I still hold some of those sentiments about, I think Oklahoma State is a better team than, they're still ranked high. So not necessarily the rankings, but just like in general, I feel like I feel like the Big 12 is weird this year because everybody's talking about Oklahoma State. Oklahoma's bad. Texas is good. Kansas is good, but nobody's really talking about TCU or Oklahoma State who are at the top of the conference, which I just think is kind of interesting. But anyway, mine is TCU. Going back to that game, TCU. Like I said, it's Spencer Sanders being hurt kind of made me not a believer in TCU. And 3 minutes left in the second quarter, and Kansas State's up 28-10 on TCU. I'm sitting there thinking, yep, that's exactly what I was saying. This team is fraud. This team is bad. Got lucky against Oklahoma State with their quarterback being injured, but they're not a good team. And then the comeback started. 91.2% win probability ESPN gave Kansas State. And then Max Duggan came all the way back and won this game. I mean, I know TCU is ranked 7, but this is a very, very, very quality team. Aside from the wins and the record and anything else that TCU has, that win and how they did it is the most important of anything, I think. Because a lot of teams get down by 18 points and they're just out of the game. They have no what's the word for it? They have no drive. They have no pep, tempo. Like they just look like they're down and out. Like Alabama playing a lot of teams in like previous seasons, not necessarily this season, but it feels like in the middle of the second quarter, a team down 18, sometimes they just, they're just out of the game already. And TCU They knew the enormity of this game. They knew that Kansas State was right behind them in the Big 12. And they were like, nah, we're going to go win this game and we're going to stay on top of the Big 12. Max Duggan, like I mentioned, absolute gamer. Quentin Johnston is a beast at wide receiver. He's really fun to watch. And yeah, I just think, like I said, I know they're ranked high. They're 7 in this week's AP poll, but it just feels like TCU is kind of, I mean, even me last week, people are thinking of them as this, oh, you know, they're 7-0, kind of gotten lucky. They're not that good of a team. And I really do think that they're a really solid team this year, especially with just the grit they showed to pull off that win this week against Kansas State. So, yeah, I think TCU is mine. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think piggybacking off of what you're saying about TCU, I mean, like even right now, I think ESPN's FPI gives TCU like a 10% chance to win the conference and like a 3% chance to make the playoffs. And even then, I don't know if y'all saw this graphic when Oklahoma State and Texas were playing. If they went out, they were giving TCU like a 20% chance to make the playoffs, which is ridiculous. They're an undefeated Power 5 conference champion winner. That makes no sense to me. I think if they win the Big 12 and they're undefeated, they 100% should be in. And they've earned their keep. I mean, the Big 12 is, I feel like it's starting to sort of sort itself out in the fact that it looked like it was really deep this year, but now it's starting to feel like, okay, yes, it's deep. Like the bad teams are pretty good this year, but there's like an obvious tier 1 and tier 2 this year. And so I think that's, and obviously, you know, TCU being at the top of tier 1, I feel like if they're undefeated, they win. That's good enough for me to put them in the playoffs. All right, Jacob, you got anything else for us here?
I think that's it. Everybody, thank you for watching. Make sure to like and comment. I mean, we're pretty roastable in our takes sometimes, and if you remember one from last week that we got wrong, make sure to roast us down in the comments. We love responding to y'all. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. It helps us out a lot. Drew?
That's all for me. Peace out, everybody.